Do you remember those classic Thanksgiving recipes that once made home feel whole? They filled kitchens with warmth, laughter, and the scent of gratitude. When did we stop making the foods that made us feel together? Oyster dressing was the pride of many coastal Southern Thanksgiving tables, a dish that brought the sea to the holiday feast. Cornbread was crumbled and mixed with celery, onions, butter, and oysters fresh from the Gulf or local markets. The briny flavor blended beautifully with the sweetness of the cornbread, creating something both humble and rich. It was baked until golden, the edges crisp and the inside soft and moist. Families who lived near the coast saw it as a taste of home, something that connected them to both land and water. Oyster dressing was never about luxury. It was about tradition, a dish passed down through grandmother's hands and worn recipe cards. As refrigeration and taste trends changed, oysters became rarer on Thanksgiving menus. But for those who remember, the scent of that bubbling pan still means celebration. Oyster dressing was Thanksgiving's coastal heart, where resourcefulness met heritage. Cranberry mold salad was the showstopper of the 1950s Thanksgiving table. Shimmering and jewel-toned, it was made from gelatin mixed with cranberry sauce, crushed pineapple, chopped nuts, and sometimes even celery for crunch. It wasn't just food, it was centerpiece art. Served in ring molds or glass bowls, it glistened under dining room lights like a ruby. Every bite was tart, sweet, and nostalgic, a perfect balance between dessert and salad. For housewives of the mid-century, it represented hospitality and creativity. Making it was a ritual, pouring, chilling, and unmolding with care. Over time, as homemade dishes gave way to simpler canned options, this wobbly wonder faded from holiday spreads. But in memory, it still sparkles, a reminder of an era when even salad dressed for the occasion. Cranberry mold salad was joy in solid form, a dish that truly shined at Thanksgiving. Giblet gravy was once the soul of Thanksgiving, thick, savory, and rich with history. It was made from the neck, heart, and liver of the turkey, simmered down with flour, broth, and patience. Its deep flavor came from care, not cost. Grandmothers knew how to make it smooth and golden, pouring it over mashed potatoes, stuffing, and even turkey slices. Every ladle carried the effort of the cook and the essence of the meal itself. It took time, chopping, simmering, stirring, but it was worth every minute. Giblet gravy wasn't just sauce, it was a lesson in thrift and tradition. Nowadays, many reach for instant mixes or skip it entirely, losing the heart of the feast. But those who remember can still taste its richness, the warmth that tied every dish together. Giblet gravy was Thanksgiving's quiet masterpiece, the glue that bound the meal and the memories. Sweet potato soufflé was the dish that blurred the line between side and dessert. Mashed sweet potatoes were whipped until airy, blended with butter, eggs, and sugar, then topped with pecans or a crumble of brown sugar. It baked into a golden, fragrant cloud that smelled like comfort itself. This was Southern elegance, a holiday staple that felt indulgent yet familiar. At church potlucks and family dinners, it brought smiles before the first bite. The sweetness paired beautifully with the saltiness of the turkey, making it unforgettable. In many homes, it replaced pie altogether, the star of both dinner and dessert. Over the years, it's been overshadowed by marshmallow-topped versions, but the original soufflé remains unmatched. Sweet potato soufflé was more than food. It was love-baked light, the taste of home dressed up for celebration. Ambrosia salad was heaven in a bowl for Southern families who believed every feast deserved something sweet. Oranges, pineapple, cherries, coconut, and marshmallows came together in creamy unity, a mix of color and joy. Served chilled, it offered a burst of freshness amid all the heavy dishes. For many, it was the first thing made and the last thing finished, a dish that symbolized abundance. Its name, Ambrosia, food of the gods, fit perfectly. It wasn't about sophistication but sentiment. Every spoonful tasted of childhood, of porch gatherings and laughter echoing through warm kitchens. Ambrosia salad was passed between hands, not plates, because it was too pretty to portion out without admiration. Though it's disappeared from modern tables, it lives on in family memory, a dessert that carried both sweetness and nostalgia. Ambrosia salad was the heart's dessert, pure and simple. Corn pudding was the comfort food that defined rural Thanksgiving tables. Fresh or canned corn mixed with milk, butter, and eggs created a soft, custard-like bake that melted in your mouth. Its sweetness was subtle, its texture soothing. Farmers' families loved it because it stretched easily. Cheap ingredients made rich by care. It smelled of harvest season and family warmth, served steaming beside turkey and greens. Every spoonful carried the golden taste of cornfields and patience. Some versions added a hint of nutmeg, others relied on pure simplicity. Corn pudding wasn't flashy, but it was dependable, a side dish that grounded the feast. As boxed mixes and fast foods took over, this quiet favorite faded away. But those who grew up with it know that no modern casserole can replace its gentle charm. Corn pudding was humble abundance baked to perfection. Mince pie was the grand finale of old-fashioned Thanksgivings. Filled with dried fruits, spices, and sometimes sweet or meat, it was rich, dark, and deeply aromatic. Its scent alone could fill a home with warmth and expectation. This pie told stories of early settlers who stretched what they had into something celebratory. The filling was simmered slowly, seasoned with nutmeg, cinnamon, and clove, flavors that tasted like history itself. Mince pie wasn't light or fleeting. It was meant to be savored, slice by slice. For generations, it sat proudly beside pumpkin and apple pies, holding its own as the taste of tradition. Today, it's nearly vanished from holiday tables, replaced by easier, milder desserts. But for those who remember, mince pie was more than food. It was the taste of gratitude, memory, and time well kept. Celery and olive relish trays were once the quiet opening act of every Thanksgiving feast. Before the turkey, before the sides, came the cool crunch of celery stuffed with pimento cheese or cream cheese and the briny bite of olives. They offered a balance, freshness, before the richness to come. Housewives prided themselves on arranging them neatly, often on cut glass trays. Children would sneak olives off the plate, pretending not to like them but always coming back for more. It was a simple tradition, but one that marked the beginning of the meal with grace and order. Over time, the relish tray faded, replaced by charcuterie boards and modern appetizers. Yet it remains a symbol of hospitality from a slower, more deliberate age. Celery and olive relish trays were Thanksgiving's crisp, elegant overture. Jellied cranberry rings were Thanksgiving's edible art. Homemade cranberry sauce was poured into molds, chilled, and turned out in perfect circles to adorn the holiday spread. The jewel-red rings shimmered beside the turkey, adding color and ceremony to the table. In the mid-century, when presentation was everything, this dish embodied the era's aesthetic pride. Housewives competed to perfect the shape, the smoothness, the glossy finish. The flavor was tart, bright, and just sweet enough to balance the meal. Over time, convenience cans replaced molds and the artistry disappeared. But in those who remember, the memory still glows. The wobble, the shine, the first perfect slice. Jellied cranberry rings were edible nostalgia, a reminder that beauty once had a place at every meal. Tomato aspic was Thanksgiving's strangest star, a savory gelatin molded with tomato juice, onions, and celery. Served chilled and sliced, it was both salad and side, a holdover from when gelatin meant sophistication. Its tangy flavor paired surprisingly well with turkey and dressing, offering brightness amid the richness. Guests either loved it or politely pushed it aside, but it always sparked conversation. In the 1950s, it symbolized elegance, something daring for the dinner table. Housewives followed recipes clipped from magazines, proud of its quivering perfection. Today, it's more curiosity than cuisine, but once it was a badge of culinary ambition. Tomato aspic was a dish of confidence, bold, unusual, and unapologetically of its time. Brown bread. Steamed pudding was a taste of New England's heart. dense, dark, and fragrant with molasses. Made from cornmeal, whole wheat flour, and buttermilk, it was steamed slowly in coffee cans or cloth bags, filling homes with warmth and spice. Each serving was soft, slightly sticky, and comforting, best eaten with butter or a drizzle of cream. For families enduring long, cold evenings, it was both dessert and sustenance. Its humble ingredients reflected a time when nothing was wasted and sweetness came from patience, not sugar. The flavor was deep and homey, carrying notes of brown sugar and earth. Once a Thanksgiving staple across rural kitchens, it has nearly vanished from modern tables. But for those who remember, it represents endurance, the kind that fed both body and spirit when times were lean. Brown bread, steamed pudding was the quiet sweetness of gratitude itself. Pumpkin chiffon pie brought lightness to a holiday known for richness. Created in the post-war era, it reimagined the classic pumpkin pie into something airy and elegant. The filling was whipped with egg whites or gelatin, giving it a soft, cloud-like texture that melted in the mouth. It represented innovation, America's shift toward modern, refined desserts. Housewives embraced it as the perfect blend of tradition and progress, offering all the pumpkin flavor without the heaviness. The glossy, golden filling sat in a flaky crust, often topped with whipped cream swirls. Served chilled, it was a refreshing finish to a day of feasting. As time went on, traditional pies reclaimed the spotlight, and this airy cousin quietly disappeared. But for a few shining decades, pumpkin chiffon pie was Thanksgiving sophistication on a plate, a reminder that even old traditions can take flight. Turnip mash with butter and cream was once a Thanksgiving essential, long before mashed potatoes claimed the throne. Farmers grew turnips easily, and they stored well through the winter, making them dependable when other crops failed. Peeled, boiled, and whipped with butter and cream, the mash was earthy and smooth with a gentle sweetness. Its scent filled the kitchen, a mix of soil and warmth, of work and reward. Families in the Northeast and Midwest considered it a mark of a proper feast. It was simple, but satisfying, the kind of dish that reminded everyone of the farm and the land that sustained them. When potatoes became more popular and affordable, turnips faded from the plate, yet their humble heartiness lingers in memory. Turnip mash with butter and cream was food of gratitude, plain, honest, and nourishing to the last bite. Mock pecan pie was the Depression-era dessert that refused to give up sweetness. When real pecans were too expensive, cooks used oats, breadcrumbs, or crushed crackers instead. Mixed with brown sugar and syrup, the filling baked into a chewy, caramel-like layer that mimicked the flavor and texture of the real thing. The crust was often handmade, rolled thin to save flour, but still tender from lard or shortening. For many, it wasn't just a substitute. It was a small act of defiance against scarcity. Families cut into it proudly, knowing they'd turned less into something that felt like enough. Mock pecan pie was the proof that celebration could exist even when times were hard. Though forgotten today, it once symbolized resilience baked golden brown. Jello cottage cheese salad was the bright, quirky side dish that defined mid-century optimism. Lime gelatin mixed with cottage cheese, crushed pineapple, and sometimes walnuts or celery. It was a combination that sounded odd but tasted delightfully fresh. The green shimmer made it a cheerful pop on Thanksgiving tables, especially against the browns and golds of the feast. Housewives loved it because it was affordable, reliable, and eye-catching. Served molded or scooped onto lettuce leaves, it represented a time when presentation meant everything. Sweet and savory blended in every bite, the texture light yet satisfying. Though it's vanished from most modern menus, Jello cottage cheese salad still holds a certain charm, a snapshot of when American dining dared to be playful. It was the color of joy on a plate, unashamedly bright and wonderfully nostalgic. Ginger ale. Glazed ham shimmered like a holiday jewel. Coated with brown sugar and basted with ginger ale, it baked into a glossy, golden masterpiece that perfumed the house with warmth and spice. The soda added sweetness and a subtle tang, caramelizing perfectly in the oven's heat. Often served alongside turkey for large family gatherings, it was the dish that meant abundance, 2 main courses instead of 1. The glaze formed a sticky, crackling crust that guests remembered long after the meal. For many mid-century families, this ham symbolized celebration without extravagance, transforming an everyday cut of meat into something grand. Today, it's rare to find on Thanksgiving tables, but its sparkle still lingers in family recipe boxes. Ginger ale glazed ham was proof that a little creativity could turn any meal into a feast. Scalloped oysters were the pride of seaside Thanksgivings, a dish layered with memory, comfort, and quiet elegance. Fresh oysters were shucked by hand, their salty liquor saved to moisten the layers of buttered cracker crumbs that surrounded them. Every layer glistened with cream, butter, and a touch of black pepper before being baked until the top turned golden and crisp. The aroma filled the house, rich, briny, and buttery all at once, like a meeting of the ocean and the hearth. In the 1800s and early 1900s, this dish symbolized refinement, served in silver dishes at hotels or in simple casseroles on coastal family tables. Each bite was a harmony of textures, the crunch of crumbs, the softness of oysters, and the silken warmth of cream. Inland families would sometimes make it with canned oysters, preserving the flavor even far from the shore. It was indulgence made accessible, a way for modest homes to taste luxury. Over time, as oysters grew expensive and palates shifted toward lighter fare, scalloped oysters slipped quietly from the holiday menu. Yet its spirit remains in old cookbooks, handwritten in fading ink beside notes like "Papa's favorite." For those who remember, it was more than food. It was a celebration of place and tradition, a dish that carried the ocean to the table. Candied carrots with orange glaze were the sunshine of the Thanksgiving table, a dish that glowed as brightly as the spirit of the day itself. Slender carrots, peeled and sliced, were simmered gently with butter, brown sugar, and a splash of orange juice until tender and glossy. As the syrup reduced, it coated every piece in a golden sheen, the fragrance of citrus and caramel drifting through the kitchen. Housewives of the 1940s and 1950s adored this recipe, not just for its beauty, but for the optimism it brought to the table. It symbolized better days after years of rationing and scarcity. The vibrant orange mirrored the era's fascination with color, abundance, and cheer. Served in sparkling glass bowls or Pyrex dishes, the carrots caught the light like jewels, a touch of brightness among the earthy tones of the feast. Children loved their sweetness. Adults appreciated their elegance. They offered a reminder that simple ingredients could still create wonder. As tastes grew more complex, this humble side faded from modern menus. But in its time, candied carrots with orange glaze represented hope, sweet, steady, and radiant, the kind of joy that came from turning the ordinary into something beautiful. Celery stuffed with pimento cheese was once the opening act of Thanksgiving, a crunchy, creamy promise of good things to come. Long before appetizers became elaborate spreads, this simple treat graced every holiday table. The recipe was pure genius, crisp celery sticks filled with a tangy mixture of shredded cheddar, chopped pimentos, and just enough mayonnaise to hold it all together. The result was cool, sharp, and savory, a perfect balance of texture and flavor. Guests would hover near the relish tray, talking and laughing as they nibbled, the sound of clinking plates and distant roasting turkey filling the background. Housewives loved the simplicity. It could be made hours ahead, arranged neatly on platters, and served with pride. In Southern homes especially, pimento cheese was a point of identity, each family claiming their own version as best. The celery gave it structure, the cheese gave it heart. As food culture modernized, this quiet classic was replaced by charcuterie boards and fancier hors d'oeuvres. But there was a kind of honesty in it, fresh, handmade, and perfectly nostalgic. Celery stuffed with pimento cheese was more than a snack. It was hospitality itself, bite-sized and smiling. Grape salad with sour cream and brown sugar was the cool, unexpected elegance of a Midwest Thanksgiving. It appeared in the 1950s and 1960s when homemakers began experimenting with recipes that required no baking yet still dazzled at the table. Green and red grapes were washed, dried, and tossed in thick, tangy sour cream. A generous sprinkle of brown sugar melted slowly over the top, forming a delicate caramel-like crust as it chilled in the refrigerator. Sometimes crushed pecans or walnuts were added for a touch of crunch. Served in cut glass bowls, it shimmered like a dessert and tasted like one too. Sweet, tart, and creamy all at once. It was the kind of dish that made guests pause mid-bite, surprised at how something so simple could taste so rich. It brought freshness to a meal often dominated by heaviness, a bright counterpoint to gravy and stuffing. For many, it was the first salad they ever truly loved. It fit perfectly into the era's fascination with sweet, savory blends and convenience cooking, beautiful without effort. Over the decades, it disappeared from most holiday tables, outshined by trendier desserts. Yet for those who remember, one spoonful of grape salad is enough to recall the laughter of long tables, clinking glasses, and the sweet ease of family gathered close. Mock oyster soup was one of the Great Depression's most inventive creations, a meal that tasted luxurious without needing luxury. Families who couldn't afford fresh seafood found a way to mimic the flavor and texture of oysters using crumbled saltine crackers simmered in milk, butter, and onion broth. The crackers softened just enough to take on a silky bite, while the milk created a comforting, creamy base. A dash of Worcestershire sauce or celery salt gave it a faint sea aroma, enough to trick both the nose and the memory. Served with a sprinkle of pepper, it looked and felt like the real thing, warm, hearty, and homey. This dish symbolized the resilience of American cooks, especially women who refused to let scarcity steal dignity from the dinner table. It wasn't about imitation, it was about imagination. Mock oyster soup turned everyday ingredients into something that felt special, proving that even in hard times, hope could simmer quietly on the stove. Mashed rutabagas with nutmeg were once the star of the winter table, earthy, fragrant, and golden as sunlight. Before potatoes became the universal staple, rutabagas were cherished for their subtle sweetness and ability to thrive in cold soil. Peeled, boiled, and mashed with butter and cream, they became velvety smooth, and a sprinkle of nutmeg added a touch of elegance that transformed their humble roots. Their aroma filled kitchens with warmth and comfort, and their color brightened the plate beside roast turkey or pork. This dish spoke of simplicity at its finest, unassuming, nourishing, and deeply satisfying. Older generations swore by its taste, claiming no vegetable paired better with gravy. But as time passed and preferences shifted, rutabagas were replaced by more familiar mashed potatoes, leaving behind only memory and old recipe cards. Mashed rutabagas with nutmeg were the quiet soul of Thanksgiving, a reminder that even the simplest roots can yield something beautiful. Pineapple bread stuffing was the post-war homemaker's answer to modern flair and cheerful flavor, an invention born from both optimism and canned convenience. During the 1950s, when kitchen shelves gleamed with new tin treasures, canned pineapple became a symbol of prosperity and modern living. Home cooks found inventive ways to work it into everything from desserts to main courses, and Thanksgiving was no exception. The tangy sweetness of pineapple blended beautifully with the savory richness of butter, bread, and sage, giving the old-fashioned dressing a tropical twist. Cubes of stale bread soaked up melted butter and broth, creating a base that was tender yet golden around the edges. Bits of pineapple were folded in last, their juices seeping into the mixture, caramelizing just enough in the oven's heat to form bursts of sweetness. Housewives adored it not only for the taste but for the image it created, bright, new, and forward-looking, just like the age they were living in. It appeared on countless family tables, often baked in Pyrex casseroles or ring molds for extra style. The scent alone, a mix of herbs and fruit, could make guests smile. Though few remember it now, Pineapple bread stuffing once embodied everything hopeful about mid-century America: thrift, creativity, and the courage to make something joyful from what was on hand. Apple buttercake was autumn distilled into sweetness, the kind of dessert that wrapped a whole season in one comforting slice. The heart of the recipe was apple butter. Apples cooked for hours until thick, dark, and fragrant with cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. Mixed into a simple batter of flour, sugar, and eggs, it created a cake that was moist, spiced, and rich without being heavy. The scent of it baking filled homes with the warmth of hearth and harvest. For farm families, it was a way to use their preserves before the new crop came in. For city dwellers, it was a taste of the countryside, nostalgic and grounding. Some topped it with caramel glaze or cream cheese frosting, while others left it plain, letting the apple's natural sweetness shine. Served on floral china or plain tin plates, it never failed to feel special. Every crumb carried memory of wood stoves and orchards, of hands stirring patiently, of cool evenings spent watching leaves turn gold. It was a bridge between eras, a dessert that never shouted but always spoke of care. Though boxed cakes and instant mixes eventually replaced it, nothing ever quite captured its soul. Apple butter cake remains a quiet anthem to home, to slowness, and to love baked steady and true. Carrot and raisin salad was sunshine in a bowl, bright, wholesome, and bursting with cheer. It appeared on mid-century Thanksgiving tables like a welcome breath of freshness among casseroles and gravies. Shredded carrots gleamed orange and crisp, their sweetness amplified by plump raisins and a creamy dressing made from mayonnaise, sugar, and sometimes lemon juice. The mix was simple but magical, its sweetness balancing the savory dishes around it. Housewives cherished it for its ease. No cooking, no fuss, just a quick toss and chill. It represented a time when beauty and thrift walked hand in hand, when even the humblest ingredients could create color and joy. Some families added pineapple or coconut for extra brightness, others kept it plain, just as their mothers did. Served in glass bowls or on lettuce leaves, it caught the light like edible sunshine. Children loved it most, eating it between bites of turkey and mashed potatoes, smiling at its sweetness. Over the years, as salads turned green and health trends changed, this cheerful orange classic slipped quietly away. But to those who remember, its taste is pure nostalgia. Afternoons filled with laughter, linoleum floors warm under bare feet, and family gathered close. Carrot and raisin salad wasn't just food, it was happiness served cold. Mock duck with apples and onions was the Depression-era miracle that turned scarcity into abundance. Born from necessity, it was a dish of imagination, a roast without the roast. Families who couldn't afford duck crafted their own version from ground pork, beef, or even beans, rolling it tight with breadcrumbs, herbs, and seasoning before baking it alongside sliced apples and onions. The result was tender, savory, and slightly sweet, its aroma filling the air with the illusion of feast and plenty. The apples softened into tangy sweetness, the onions caramelized to gold, and together they transformed humble meat into something grand. Housewives took pride in serving it, knowing it offered both flavor and dignity when little else could. It sliced beautifully, holding its shape like a fine roast, and was often garnished with a sprig of parsley or a drizzle of pan juices to make it shine. Served with mashed potatoes or turnip greens, it turned an ordinary Sunday into a celebration. Mock duck wasn't just clever, it was emotional alchemy, turning want into joy, hardship into grace. Though few make it now, the dish lives on in the stories of those who endured and triumphed with ingenuity as their secret ingredient. Mock duck with apples and onions was survival elevated to art. Cranberry orange relish with walnuts was Thanksgiving brightness in its purest form. Before canned cranberry sauce became a staple, families would grind fresh cranberries with whole oranges, peel and all, mixing in chopped walnuts and sugar until it glowed ruby red. The result was tart, sweet, and bursting with freshness, a contrast to the rich, heavy dishes around it. Every spoonful was alive with flavor and texture, a mix of crunch and tang that woke up the palate. Prepared by hand, often with a hand-cranked grinder, it carried the satisfaction of true craftsmanship. It wasn't molded or uniform. It was vivid and real, a reflection of the season's bounty. Though it's been replaced by smooth, canned versions, the original relish remains a taste of authenticity. Cranberry orange relish with walnuts was more than a condiment. It was the sparkle of Thanksgiving, brightening every plate it touched. Baked celery casserole was the understated elegance of early 20th century dining, the kind of dish that spoke softly but impressed deeply. Tender celery pieces were simmered just until translucent, then folded into a creamy white sauce thickened with flour and milk. A topping of buttered breadcrumbs crowned the casserole, baking into a golden crust that broke away to reveal tender, velvety layers beneath. It carried a mild, nutty aroma that filled the kitchen with comfort, its flavor delicate yet undeniably rich. Celery was not always an everyday vegetable. Once a mark of sophistication, it appeared on fine dinner tables in cut glass vases before making its way into recipes like this. Housewives saw it as a chance to elevate the ordinary, to prove that refinement did not require extravagance. The dish often accompanied roasted meats, its creaminess balancing the meal's heavier notes. Served bubbling in porcelain dishes, it looked elegant enough for company but familiar enough for family. Over time, as stronger spices and bolder flavors took hold, its quiet grace faded into memory. Yet those who remember it can still recall the taste of care, the way every bite felt calm, composed, and complete. Baked celery casserole remains a forgotten whisper of a time when gentleness itself was flavor. Molasses pecan pie was the Deep South's answer to richness with soul, a dessert that carried history in every dark, sticky bite. Instead of corn syrup, it relied on molasses, giving the pie a flavor that was smoky, bittersweet, and deeply rooted in the soil that grew both its sugarcane and its pecans. Each slice shimmered beneath candlelight, its filling thick and glossy, its scent a mix of toasted nuts, caramel, and earth. The crust, flaky and browned, framed the dense, syrupy middle like a work of art. This wasn't just a sweet treat. It was a story of frugality and flavor intertwined, of cooks who understood that depth mattered more than excess. Families adapted their recipes from one generation to the next, each adding a personal touch, more molasses for bite, more butter for silk, more pecans for pride. Served warm with a dollop of whipped cream, it felt like the world had slowed down for a moment of indulgence. Molasses pecan pie embodied Southern resilience, blending hardship and abundance into one perfect harmony. Today, its dark richness is rarely seen on modern tables, replaced by lighter, easier desserts. But those who tasted it know it wasn't just dessert, it was devotion made edible. Raisin pie, or funeral pie, as it was once called, carried both comfort and continuity in its humble crust. Its filling, plump raisins stewed in sugar, butter, and warm spices, formed a glossy, fragrant syrup that thickened as it baked, wrapping the fruit in golden sweetness. The pie earned its nickname because it traveled well and used shelf-stable ingredients, making it ideal for sharing at gatherings of both joy and mourning. Its aroma, cinnamon, molasses, and vanilla, was the smell of memory itself. In times before refrigeration, raisins offered sweetness when fresh fruit was out of reach, and this pie became a symbol of endurance through lean winters and hard years. At Thanksgiving, it was both dessert and remembrance, honoring those who came before through the act of baking. Each slice carried the taste of patience, the hours of slow simmering, the quiet rolling of dough, the comfort of routine. The texture was thick, sticky, and satisfying, the kind that lingered on the tongue long after the meal ended. Though today it has largely disappeared from holiday tables, its spirit remains, passed down through old cookbooks and whispered stories. Raisin pie was proof that even in loss or scarcity, sweetness could always be found and shared. Sweet potato egg bakes are kind of the same as the biscuits, because while they're really easy to make and they have enough flavor to justify a trip to the kitchen, they just don't have the same star power or enough health benefits for most people to keep the recipe on their roster for a long period of time. They're a mix of eggs, roasted sweet potatoes, cheese, and your favorite kind of vegetables. It involves a lot of layering since it's meant to resemble a typical casserole more than anything else. Unfortunately, that gives it the downsides of casseroles too, since those are always really hearty dishes you make to fill up an entire family. The upsides it has aren't as good as an actual cassie, so a lot of people debated just going straight for a typical casserole when they were making this over a few weeks. People eventually made the shift towards lighter breakfasts and left this recipe on the benches, never to be seen again in the mainstream. Be very wary of what you see on the internet when you search for a Jefferson Davis pie. For some reason, a lot of traditional recipes out there have started leaving out literally everything that makes this pie special. See, a proper Jefferson Davis pie is an antique 1970s recipe for sure, but even in the earliest 19th century references in cookbooks, it is dried fruit pie. Jefferson Davis made with spices, dates, pecans, and raisins, very each thick custard filling. In different parts of the South, the concentrated bourbon syrup to go along with it also got popular, but the pie worked as it was too. People were a little hesitant to try a pie with spices. But as far as vintage recipes go, both in the field, this pie left no boxes unchecked. We are quite sad to see it go, really. Peanut butter haystacks were the definition of 1970s kitchen magic. No baking, no measuring fuss, just pure fun in a bowl. A handful of crunchy chow mein noodles, a spoonful of peanut butter, and melted butterscotch chips came together into golden, tangled clusters. They sat on wax paper like tiny sculptures, imperfect yet irresistible. Each bite was salty, sweet, and just the right kind of messy. Haystacks were the dessert you made when company called unexpectedly, or when kids wanted something to help with in the kitchen. They were bite-sized nostalgia, the perfect blend of simplicity and delight. People loved them because they looked homemade but felt inventive, the hallmark of the 1970s sweet tooth. Whether packed in lunchboxes or piled high on Christmas trays, haystacks carried the same message, that joy did not need precision, only warmth. Their crunch was unforgettable, their smell even more so. Peanut butter haystacks may have vanished from modern holidays, but they still live in memory, tangled up with laughter and gold. Maple glazed acorn squash was the kind of side dish that made the kitchen smell like the season itself. The squash was halved, seeds scooped out, and baked until its flesh softened and deepened in color. Then came the glaze. A mix of butter and maple syrup brushed across the top until it shimmered. Back in the oven it went, roasting slowly until the edges caramelized and the centers turned silky. The aroma that filled the air was sweet and woodsy, a hint of maple mixing with the warmth of roasted squash. When pulled from the oven, it gleamed like amber under the light, soft but still holding its shape. Each bite blended savory and sweet, earthy and bright, like a conversation between autumn and winter. It was a dish that needed no decoration, its natural beauty already enough. Served beside roast turkey or ham, it brought balance and warmth to every plate. Maple glazed acorn squash was nature turned into art, simple, wholesome, and full of comfort, meant to be shared with love. Sausage gravy over toasted bread is a traditional Southern breakfast that for a long time was the heart and soul of the South, especially in places like Texas. You should not confuse this with country gravy because there is a stark difference between the two. See, country gravy does not have the juicy, mouth-watering, glorious addition of animal fat involved in the process. Sausage gravy, on the other hand, uses loose pork sausages, and once the meat is rendered, it takes the fat and mixes it with flour to make the roux and thicken the gravy. You pair that up with some perfectly golden brown toasted bread, and you are in for a world of culinary delight. The best part was that you could amp up the smoky sausage flavor by just adding more sausage to the gravy or keep it toned down for a milder taste. Either way, an incredibly yummy and economical breakfast. Cranberry pies were made with fresh cranberries that would be used in either purees or jam fillings, and were always typically featured in tart pies or alongside sugar fillings. Amping up the sweetness factor was what bakers were going for with the cranberry pie, and to sweet tooths all across the nation, the goal was definitely achieved. Even if that came at the cost of some of your favorite pairs of jeans not fitting anymore, the taste was just divine. It was worth it to splurge a bit, pig out, and devour a cranberry pie straight out the oven. A lot of bakeries specialized in this, and it was a moneymaker that drove this. To customers, if a place did not have a cranberry pie, it probably did not have anything else worth eating. Still, cranberry pies are not the litmus test they used to be, and nowadays they are a pretty old-fashioned pie that had their glory days long ago. Pumpkin cream cheese bars were the sweet smell of autumn baked into a pan. Every layer told a story. The spiced pumpkin batter, warm with cinnamon and nutmeg, swirled through with ribbons of cream cheese that melted into smooth perfection. These bars came from the era of baking mixes, when convenience met creativity, and home cooks discovered that a box of cake mix could still feel homemade. They cooled on countertops while the house filled with the scent of Thanksgiving and nostalgia. The cream cheese added richness to every bite, the pumpkin gave warmth, and the blend felt like the comfort of a sweater you never wanted to take off. They were cut into squares, shared at church gatherings, and tucked into holiday tins with wax paper folded between them. For a generation that valued thrift and taste in equal measure, these bars struck gold. Each piece held just enough spice to make winter feel close, and just enough sweetness to make you stay a little longer at the table. Pumpkin cream cheese bars weren't just a dessert. They were the quiet hum of a decade that knew how to make joy from a baking pan. Chestnut puree was quiet elegance spooned beside a roast, smooth as velvet and sweet with the memory of smoke. Chestnuts were roasted, peeled, and mashed with butter, cream, and sugar until the mixture turned golden and silken. The flavor was gentle yet complex, nutty, faintly caramel-like, touched with the taste of the fire. Served warm beside turkey or beef, it felt indulgent without needing to show off. In the early 1900s, it graced both grand dining rooms and humble kitchens, a symbol of refinement that still knew how to comfort. The texture mirrored mashed potatoes, but its taste carried winter's heart, soft, rich, and a little nostalgic. It paired beautifully with gravies and roasts, balancing their depth with quiet sweetness. Making it took time and patience, the kind only holidays allowed. Each spoonful felt like celebration itself, simple, elegant, and timeless. Chestnut puree was food for the soul, a forgotten treasure waiting to be remembered. Earthquake cakes are not made from innovation born of scarcity. No, on the contrary, many critics and crowds were of the opinion that it often did too much. Similarly, for people who loved explosive combinations of flavors that bounced off of each other, this was nirvana. A chocolate mix base for the cake layered and filled with coconuts, pecans, and chocolate chips, as well as topped with cream cheese and chocolate batter. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a lot. We love our sweets just as much as the next person, but at some point it stings, you know? Despite facing some not-so-welcoming reviews here and there, earthquake cakes were pretty common in tropical seasons, particularly in states like Hawaii and Florida. Definitely a cake that is a bit too all over the place to have lasted the long haul, though. Cranberry orange congealed salad was color and sparkle on a winter plate. You mixed tart cranberries with orange zest, sugar, and cloves, folding everything into bright red gelatin until it shimmered like stained glass. It chilled in molds shaped like rings, wreaths, or hearts, depending on the occasion. When turned out, it quivered perfectly, cool and festive. Each slice tasted sharp and sweet, a burst of fruit against heavy meats and gravies. The orange gave brightness, the cloves a whisper of spice. It looked fancy, even when made from pantry staples. In the 1950s, it was the pride of the table, a bridge between salad and dessert. Served with whipped cream or plain, it reminded everyone that beauty could be edible. Cranberry orange congealed salad was nostalgia on a plate, wobbly, bright, and full of cheer. Candy cane fudge bars brought holiday sparkle to every table. Chocolate fudge, soft and glossy, was spread thick in pans before being topped with crushed peppermint sticks. The colors, deep brown and bright red, looked like Christmas captured in candy. Each bite was a dance of cool mint and rich cocoa, bold yet balanced. Children helped press the candies on top, their fingers sticky with chocolate and joy. Mothers wrapped pieces in wax paper and tucked them into tins bound for neighbors and friends. The bars snapped cleanly, each one shining with little shards of peppermint glass. They were a gift that spoke of cheer and warmth without needing a card. In an era when everything was homemade and heart-driven, candy cane fudge bars stood out as both festive and effortless. They brought smiles to faces and sweetness to cold winter nights. One bite and the holidays felt close again. Simple, sincere, and sparkling. Wheatena was yet another wheat-based hot cereal that was a really good choice for a while thanks to the high fiber content and the organic focus on grainy goodness. But it couldn't last overall thanks to, well, and there's no easy way to say this, it just doesn't taste that good. At least not by modern standards, which have largely shifted away from grain-based meals and breakfasts. The thing is, you can't be good at just one thing when it comes to lasting in a country with so much culinary competition. America's one gigantic melting pot of cultures, foods, and different cuisines, so the people are a little spoiled too. How can they not be? There's just so much to pull from. And that's very much a good thing since it gives us a lot of options and a refined palate, which isn't really a mold Wheatena fits into. People wanted a middle ground between healthy and tasty, and Wheatena leaned way more towards the former. Soufflé pie is a pie that first got its start in America's food history in Pennsylvania Dutch country as the go-to for when people had a crumb craving. Wanted a pie that had a crunchy crust and a crumb-filled topping? Soufflé pie was on speed dial and also on every bakery shelf in the 70s, just waiting to arrive at your doorstep. A molasses filling inside a sizable crust was the apple of every Pennsylvania resident's eye, and soon the infection would spread. People from every state started adopting their own versions of soufflé pies, although when the itch came for an authentic, flavorful soufflé, a road trip to Pennsylvania was in order. I guess when a dish boosts tourism for your state, you can officially consider it good. Those same folks now visit for other reasons since soufflé have flown away from bakeries. Rum raisin ice cream pie was the dessert of quiet indulgence. Vanilla ice cream softened and folded around raisins soaked in dark rum until plump and fragrant. The mixture was poured into a cookie crust and frozen again until smooth as silk. Every slice felt cool, creamy, and just daring enough to feel grown up. The scent of rum filled the kitchen, mingling with laughter and low music from another room. It was the kind of dessert served after the children went to bed, a secret holiday pleasure for adults. Topped with a drizzle of caramel or chocolate, it looked luxurious, but came together with ease. Its flavor, sweet, spiced, and a little bold, carried a memory of warmth even when frozen. Rum raisin ice cream pie was the spirit of the decade, a little glamorous, a little rebellious, and completely unforgettable. Harvard beets brought color and character to the winter table, gleaming like tiny jewels under the soft glow of kitchen light. Sliced thin and simmered in a blend of vinegar, sugar, and butter, they transformed from simple roots into something glossy, fragrant, and unforgettable. The sauce thickened slowly, clinging to each slice in a ruby glaze that shimmered like glass. When spooned onto a plate, their deep red stood out against the pale tones of mashed potatoes and the dark browns of roasts. The flavor was a perfect balance, sweet, tart, and just a little smoky, cutting through heavy gravies with a clean brightness that woke up the palate. They were proof that even the humblest vegetable could taste like luxury when treated with care. In early American kitchens, Harvard beets were a point of pride, the kind of dish that made a simple meal feel special. Adults savored them while children pushed them aside, but everyone remembered their shine. Served warm, they tasted like thrift turned to art. Simple ingredients transformed into something extraordinary. Harvard beets were both beauty and nourishment, a reminder that a little vinegar, sugar, and patience could turn the ordinary into the unforgettable. Sock-it-to-me cakes were probably the vanilla lover's equivalent to a tunnel of fudge. Just like the former, everything about this cake amplified the sweet vanilla flavor. In the 1970s, buttery elements in desserts were really common, and most pastries, cakes, or desserts of any kind had heavy notes of butter in their overall taste. At the time, fruity flavors like rhubarbs and blackberries had taken just a bit of a back seat, and instead, others grew, especially flavors like vanilla and pecan. Sock-it-to-me cakes took those two tried and tested pillars of cake making and mixed them with a cinnamon streusel in the center. What you had then was a deliciously tender, moist, and rich cake that was perfect in just about any season and easily available. In the 70s, they definitely had a very memorable run, but as America kept changing its tastes, this recipe went in the closet. Banana Cream Delight lived up to its name, every spoonful light, cool, and layered with love. It started with sliced bananas nestled into creamy vanilla pudding stacked between graham crackers or vanilla wafers, then crowned with whipped topping. As it chilled overnight, the flavors melded into something soft and silky, not too sweet but just right. This was the kind of dessert that came out after the main meal, carried proudly in glass casseroles and greeted with smiles. The first scoop was always the hardest, cutting through the neat layers to reveal the golden pudding beneath. Families made it for potlucks, birthdays, and especially holidays when ovens were already too full. In the 1970s, it represented everything good about home kitchens: resourceful, reliable, and always made to share. The bananas browned just a little, but no one minded. It was the taste that mattered, not the perfection. Every bite tasted like memory, soft as a lullaby, and rich as the laughter it was served with. Banana Cream Delight wasn't just a dessert, it was a promise that even the simplest ingredients could create something unforgettable. Speaking of breakfasts, have you ever heard of dippy eggs? Pretty popular little dish, featuring runny yolks as the star of the show, but not something you'd find in any cookbook today. Americans are a little bad when it comes to sanitary practices with food because the runny yolk aspect actually triggered salmonella in some people and a widespread fear in most. Despite how you can actually avert the risk entirely if you just follow the recommended ways to cook it. You pair that with dippy eggs, taking really precise timing to get that consistency for the yolk, and you get a dish that's more intimidating than it is inviting. Even if people knew how to tune down the risk of catching a grade A disease, they weren't sure if they could nail the timing each and every breakfast. There were a lot easier things to dip your toast in, and they were definitely quicker to prepare. If you were an egg person, there was a plethora of other egg-based dishes you could go for instead, so there was never really much incentive towards this. Mock apple pies were maybe the top 5 foods to come out of the Great Depression era. Everything about this pie was meant to imitate the feeling, texture, and taste of a good old-fashioned apple pie, but without the costs of one. In the trenches of the Depression era, basic nutrition and fruits became a rarity, and people really only had so much to work with. What came out of those times were a bunch of copies of very beloved foods that Americans were able to afford just a year or two ago. Mock cuisine soon took over a lot of neighborhoods, and mock apple pies made their home in dozens of fridges. Instead of sliced apples, people used Ritz crackers, and the taste and appearance matched an apple pie almost entirely, especially as folks got better at capturing the essence of one, although of course it could not beat the original, and since people's wallets would start feeling better soon, it disappeared. Orange cream gelatin parfaits were bright as morning light. Served in tall glass cups, they layered orange gelatin with creamy vanilla pudding, a playful mix of texture and color. The contrast made them as beautiful as they were refreshing. They tasted like dreamsicles turned elegant, each spoonful both cool and comforting. For 1970s hosts, they were a way to bring color and joy to the holiday table without breaking a sweat. Children loved the wobbly layers. Adults loved their nostalgic charm. Topped with a swirl of whipped cream and a slice of mandarin orange, they glistened like little suns on the table. The first taste was silky and citrus sweet, a small escape from the winter chill outside. Orange cream parfaits carried that balance the decade loved, playful yet polished, easy but never dull. They were desserts you could see before tasting, and somehow that made them taste even better. Every layer held light, laughter, and the brightness of simpler times. Celery root mash was the quiet elegance of 1970s holiday dining, where French refinement met American practicality. The rough, knobby root, unassuming and pale, hid a tender heart beneath its coarse skin. Peeled, diced, and simmered until soft, it was mashed with butter, cream, and a touch of salt until it turned smooth and velvety. Its flavor was delicate, a balance between potatoes' richness and celery's brightness, earthy but faintly floral. The first spoonful melted on the tongue, light but satisfying, filling the air with buttery calm. It was served beside roasted duck or beef, bringing refinement without pretense. Magazine spreads of the time praised it as modern, chic, and continental, but beneath its polish lived the same comfort found in any farmhouse mash. Its color was pale ivory, its texture a dream. Every bite felt thoughtful, measured, complete. Celery root mash proved that even the humblest vegetables could become something extraordinary when treated with care, a quiet triumph of simplicity turned sublime. Popovers were these light pastries that needed nothing special at all. You had your eggs, milk, and flour, and then you were pretty much set to go. Seeing these at a table was just as common as seeing those floral print chinas that just about every household had for some reason. But you go to a dinner at anyone's today, and the last thing you'll see is some popovers. Now, why is that? The thing is, they're really easy to mess up. They need preheated pans, a hot oven, and a very detail-oriented cooking process that needs a lot of focus and precision. For the amount of effort and skill that this takes, there's just not enough value to make it a sustainable and reliable option out in the field for most home cooks. They'd rather just make something like pigs in a blanket or muffins and be done with it, especially with how Americans just naturally kept gravitating towards easier and easier food. It goes really well with watching some TV and lazing around, you know? Maryland's classic white potato pies are an incredible place to start off our listas. They are some of the most innovative, simple, and tastiest dishes to come out of the state. All you need for this are some ingredients you will probably have in your kitchen already. This includes mashed potatoes, a few eggs, butter, and a crisp pie filling that makes for a savory pie that lightens up any dinner. You might associate your pies with nothing but dairy and sweets, but people in the South would mix and match a lot of savory ingredients. Eventually, they found out that not only do jam and custard go in a pie crust, but mashed potatoes do too. Just a bit of vanilla frosting topped off a dish that broke away from convention and left everyone's stomachs happier for it. Comfort food peaked in the 90s for people in Maryland when everyone had this in the fridge, but it would vanish just a few decades later from most households. Oatmeal scotchies were the heart of holiday giving. Chewy and golden, they blended oats and butterscotch chips into something simple yet extraordinary. The smell alone could fill a room with warmth, wrapping every corner in sweetness. Each batch came out of the oven soft in the middle, crisp at the edges, perfect in their imperfection. They were the kind of cookie baked with conversation, laughter, and the radio playing in the background. Mothers stacked them in tins lined with wax paper, sending them to friends, teachers, and faraway relatives. They represented kindness more than luxury, care more than presentation. Oatmeal scotchies held a kind of magic that never made it into cookbooks, the magic of togetherness. They were the humble heroes of the 1970s dessert table, proof that the simplest ingredients could carry the most love. One bite, and you could taste home. Cornbread dressing with sage was love served hot, a taste of the South, timeless and sacred. Scalloped cabbage was the farmhouse miracle that turned thrift into comfort and simplicity into celebration. Heads of cabbage were sliced, boiled until soft, then layered into a buttered dish with milk, flour, and crumbs before being baked to perfection. The top browned into a crusty layer while the inside turned creamy and delicate. The scent that rose from the oven was quiet but comforting, a promise of warmth on a cold day. Each bite blended sweetness, salt, and cream, the humble cabbage transformed into something rich and gentle. It was food born from care, made to stretch what little the pantry offered. Farmers' wives passed it down through generations, teaching that love was measured in time, not luxury. Served beside roast ham or potatoes, it filled the table with modest grace. Scalloped cabbage was the memory of hard winters and soft hearts, a dish that spoke softly but lingered long, reminding everyone that simple food can hold the deepest kind of beauty. Cherry chiffon cakes hit a sweet spot for almost every American, whether under or over the age of 30, in both their worst and best times. An incredibly cloud-like cake that almost felt like biting into squishy air makes for therapeutic release, apparently. Cherry chiffons worked in any mood and situation. Getting married? Got your diploma? Had a baby? Moving out or celebrating a promotion? Won your divorce settlement? Whatever it was, this cherry-topped cake was there to make the sweet taste of it all even sweeter. Bakeries would usually sell these at pretty affordable rates too, so it was not anything that broke the bank if you ordered it. Heck, it was popular enough that it was a regular order every other day at most places. Those days are gone now, and Americans find that kind of personal comfort in much more different things today. Which forgotten Thanksgiving dish would you bring back? Tell us below. And if it warmed your heart, like and subscribe to keep these memories cooking.